Hey, lovely, let's talk about this. Because I think there's something that many foster carers have mistaken for humility, but actually it's self erasure. And I know that sounds quite strong, but stay with me for this. Because somewhere along the way, a lot of carers have learned that being a good foster carer, it just means being quiet, not asking too much, not taking up space, not appearing difficult, and not sounding too confident. And over time, that can slowly turn into something much deeper. You stop advocating clearly, you stop trusting in your gut instincts, and you actually downplay your experience. You dismiss your own exhaustion, and eventually you become so focused on keeping everybody else comfortable that you disappear inside the process completely. By the end of this episode, I want us to really explore the difference between true humility and false humility, because they are not the same thing. And I think a lot of carers are carrying something that looks humble on the outside, but underneath is actually fear. So let's start here. What actually is humility? Because biblically, humility was never about pretending that you have no value. It was never about pretending that you know nothing. It was never about making yourself small so that everybody else around you can feel bigger. True humility is about being grounded. It's recognizing who God is, and it's recognizing who you are in relation to Him. It's teachability, it's wisdom, it's self awareness. But false humility, that looks very different. False humility constantly dismisses itself. It rejects compliments, it minimizes impact, and it avoids visibility. It even apologizes for existing. And often it sounds spiritual. It sounds like, I'm probably wrong, it's no big deal, anyone could do this. I don't want to seem arrogant, I'm just a foster carer. But what if constantly speaking about yourself that way isn't actually humility at all? What if it's fear? What if it's fear of being judged, fear of conflict, being seen as the difficult one, fear of taking up too much space, fear of sounding too confident? And honestly, I think fostering environments really reinforce this because carers are constantly navigating power dynamics. We navigate panel, meetings, other professionals, reviews, and systems. And after a while, you can unconsciously learn that staying small feels much safer. You learn that instead of speaking clearly, you soften everything. Instead of saying, this isn't working, you say, maybe it's me. Instead of saying, I'm exhausted, you just say, I'm fine. Instead of saying, I know this child well, you say, I could be wrong, but. And eventually you stop recognizing your own voice altogether. But here's the thing, God never asked you to disappear in order to be humble. Moses was humble, Esther was humble, Jesus himself was humble. But humility didn't stop them from speaking. It didn't stop any of them from leading. And it didn't stop them from taking responsibility. It didn't stop them from stepping away when they needed to. And I think some carers have confused humility with passivity, because true humility can still hold boundaries. True humility can still advocate. True humility can still say no. True humility can still recognize wisdom and growth. And some of you listening today, you need to understand that constantly dismissing yourself does not make you safer emotionally. It usually just makes you quieter and more isolated. And quiet foster carers often carry enormous pressure internally because externally they look compliant, they look accommodating, they look easygoing, but internally you're overwhelmed, you become resentful, you're exhausted, and you're actually disconnected from yourself. And eventually that does catch up with people. In Galatians 6:9, it reminds us, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And I think a part of not giving up is learning how to remain present within your own life, not abandoning yourself emotionally while trying to care for everybody else. because fostering requires so much sacrifice. And if you add self-erasure on top of that, you slowly disappear. And I think another really important part of this conversation is understanding that acknowledging your growth is not arrogance. Some of you have grown enormously through fostering. You have become more patient, more emotionally aware, more discerning, even more resilient. And you've also learned how to regulate yourself under pressure. You've learned how to advocate for others. You've learned how to create safety for children from hard places. And pretending none of that exists, that doesn't make you humble. It just prevents you from recognizing what God has been building within you. And honestly, I think some carers are so used to criticism that they struggle to receive any form of affirmation. They immediately deflect it. Oh, it was nothing. Anybody would do that. I'm still getting it wrong most of the time. But what if somebody acknowledged your impact? It doesn't need to make you feel uncomfortable. What if you could just simply say, thank you, and allow that moment to exist without diminishing yourself? Because this episode is not about becoming self-focused, but it's been about becoming honest. Honest about where you have grown. Honest about what you carry. And honest about the wisdom you've developed throughout your experiences. And maybe a part of healing in fostering is learning how to stop abandoning yourself in the name of humility. So if you've been listening today and you've recognized this in yourself through this conversation, I want you to just sit with this question for a moment. Have you been calling something humility that is actually fear? Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, even of visibility, fear of taking up space? Because you don't have to disappear to become a good foster carer. You do not have to constantly diminish yourself to stay grounded. In the next episode, we're going to take this conversation even deeper again and talk about why playing small doesn't actually protect foster carers. Because shrinking yourself may feel safe in the short term, but over time it disconnects you from your voice, from your leadership and your identity. But for now, just sit with this. Humility was never supposed to cost you your sense of self. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this message with a fellow foster carer. And if you're not ready to say goodbye yet, don't worry, we can hang out some more. I'll catch you on the next episode.